I'm glad you're here with us, and I am so excited to have you, two Mississippi girls, on the parade.
Yep.
Hey, so I am so just thrilled that you were able to take time out of your busy schedule and be a part of the parade today. In your own words, tell us about your organization, your company, and what inspired you beyond just what we read in your bio, but in your words, what inspired you to open Nozomi and be able to provide the services and the solutions that you're providing to the world?
Okay. The inspiration occurred about 8 or 9 years ago when I found myself working with a nonprofit here in the North Florida area. And they were a relationship education organization. And I realized that people don't have the skills for healthy relationships. And so the organization that I work with specialized in working with marriages and families. And so over and over, I saw that people were struggling in their marriage, not because they didn't love each other, they didn't know how to love each other well. They weren't equipped with the skills and tools to be able to be emotionally mature adults, which is necessary, I think, to have a healthy, whole marital relationship. And so the more I worked in that space, I took a step back and looked at, okay, where are we supposed to learn the skills for relating well? And we were created to connect and relate. And so we were supposed to learn those skills in our homes. Okay. And so if we didn't grow up in homes where people related well to one another, mom and dad, mom to the children, whatever the dynamic of the home, then we grow up just kind of having to figure it out. And so those inadequacies show up in particular in marital relationships when you have two individual distinct people coming together and saying, we're going to do life for the rest of our lives together. And once the loving feelings wear off, now what do we do? And they don't have the skills to be able to create a marriage that they desire. So, most people that divorce don't divorce because they don't love each other. They divorce because they don't know how to love each other well. This goes beyond just the marital relationships. Look at other aspects of your life. What do those relationships look like? Are they healthy? Is there tension in personal relationships, mom, dad, siblings, in the workplace? So we are all about empowering transformation, not change. Change is temporary. We're talking about transforming who you are so that it is a way of being. Okay. So that transformation for individuals, couples, businesses, and churches, and we equip them with the skills to be able to do that. So we take it from just concepts to how do I do that? How do we operationalize emotional maturity and love in a way that is significant? So if we look at our society today, two major problems. Loneliness, it is an epidemic. It is the number one epidemic in the nation, so much so that insurance companies are studying it and trying to figure out how to cure loneliness because it's costing them money. Okay, it's a problem when insurance companies are putting forth money or dollars toward research. So loneliness, even though we are the most connected we've ever been, and I can talk to someone on the other side of the world in a matter of seconds, we're still lonely. So we're not connecting in healthy ways. The other piece of that is we're not emotionally mature. So you can have a high EQ, intelligence, you can identify emotions, but if you don't know how to treat each other with humility, respect, empathy, and goodwill, which is how we quantify, or the definition we give to emotional maturity, then you're going to have disconnected, conflicted relationships.
That's good. That's good stuff right there. And so your ultimate inspiration for this came, it sounds like, from what you were experiencing as a result of being a part of an organization and deciding that this was your purpose, this was your calling. And do you remember a specific day or incident that or something you experienced that was your aha moment?
Oh, that is a beautiful question. I think it was working with highly stressed couples. When I say highly stressed, I'm talking about couples who have lost hope and are either on the brink of divorce, like their next step is divorce, or they have already filed for divorce, and this is they're coming to see us for a Hail Mary.
Mhm.
Working with those couples, being in the room, coming along, locking arms with them, and equipping them with the how to create a marriage that they love and desire, and seeing that transformation it changed everything, because I wasn't just part of helping to save a marriage. If they had children, I was helping to save generations,
Mhm.
to
That's good.
impact generations, children that may never be born because mom and those two people divorced, or the children that were part of that union. They didn't see healthy relationships. Mom and dad relate healthy, so they didn't know how to replicate that in their own lives, or they experienced the pain and trauma where there was conflict in the home and mom and dad didn't know how to deal with it, and that impacts the developing brain of a child. So I saw this as more than just, oh, that's a marriage that is in trouble. No, we're talking about the impact on their children. We're talking about the generations. And even if that couple had no children, just, when our relationships aren't healthy, it impacts all of our life. You
Mhm.
can't get out of not being impacted by relationships.
Right, right.
And so
Mhm.
it also speaks to the health of who we are as a whole person.
Love that. I love that. And so when you talk about the health of who you are as a whole person and you think about the things that inspired you and to find this relationship education and relating well as your purpose, this is your lane. You went from being in insurance and investments to finding purpose in relationship and teaching people the right way to love each other. And I'm going to tell you, I'm one of those people that I love having healthy friends and who actually walk out what they actually are teaching, or I believe in being a public and private success. And Miko, you are. It's such a pleasure always to spend time with you and your family. So I would love for you to share with those that are listening or will be listening how your cultural identity and or who you are as a person has influenced not only the way that you run your business and your brand, but in, I'll say, not just your business but the brand of who you are as a person, how you represent as a mother, as a wife, as how tell let's talk about that. How does that all play into this purpose that you have to help stabilize and even save future generations through the knowledge of truly understanding how we should relate well?
Hmm. I really have to honor my parents here, because my parents, married now over 54 years, were very engaging parents. They parented on purpose. They created a space for my sister and I to really thrive in our home. They were loving, they were nurturing. Now, did they have challenges in their marriage? 100%. I didn't want a marriage exactly like my parents, but I valued what my parents created for us. And when I look at their history, I get a greater understanding of who they brought into the marriage and how their history impacted them. And so, considering their history and how they were raised, I think they did a pretty amazing job in navigating parenting for my sister and I, and helping us to grow up in a loving, caring environment. And so I had that as a foundation. And then I met my husband, and he grew up in a single parent household up until he was around 13. But you wouldn't have necessarily know that if you to know him today, because there really was the community. That was grandfathers and grandfather and uncles that poured into his life. And so when we came together, we were pretty healthy emotionally and relationally, and we knew what we wanted and we knew what we didn't want in terms of creating a family and a marriage, and we were just very intentional about that. And so I appreciate my culture in the sense of there were very strong, powerful women in my family. My dad was avid about being engaged in our lives and in protecting and caring for our family financially. And then, Chris, what he brought in terms of how he was raised. And so we just took that. I think we had a great start, and we just continued to build on that. So today, 27, almost 28 years of marriage, it hasn't been perfect because there are no perfect people. So there can't be any perfect marriages, but it absolutely has been sweet. Our children, they're all young adults now. Seeing who they have become as adults has changed everything for us in terms of children model who you are. So much of what they learn and who they are, it wasn't what we taught them directly, but what they caught. And they caught it because they saw it modeled in front of them. So for me and the African American or brown, just the communities that would be considered minorities, if you will, choose it. Who do you want to be? What do you want to create? And then find mentors, models, programs that can show you that path, because it is absolutely so worth it.
I love that. I love that. Because I think it's important for us, and even as entrepreneurs, that we have to be able to center ourselves around our own cultural experiences, and not be ashamed of that, whether or
That's
not
right.
you're Black or minority, because that is the foundation of who we are. And no matter how we try to run from it, it's like running from church. It's still in you, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just honestly, I like how you're sharing that, to help people understand the importance of the family dynamic, whether or not it's functional, dysfunctional, healthy, unhealthy. That's why you, as the chief operating officer for Relate Well Institute, can find that as, I know you said that's your primary client, or your main client. I'll say your main client.
Right.
And talk to us about what Relate Well Institute does, and how can it really, because I think in your bio, I'm going to look at it again real quick, but it talks about transformational relationship training to businesses. So, talk to me, or us, and those that are listening, about how Relate Well Institute can assist businesses with that transformational relationship training.
Yes. So that would be our Rise Leadership Program. So the foundation of everything that we do is built on what we call the four protectors. Okay. It's humility equals respect, empathy, and goodwill. And how becoming humility, respect, empathy, and goodwill, you can by yourself impact the relationship. You can protect the relationship, any relationship. Every relationship has an us. So when you are humility, respect, empathy, and goodwill by yourself, you can protect us, whether that's you and a colleague, you and a daughter, a son, you and a mom, a dad, a wife. It doesn't.